Thank you, and welcome back to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. So if you hear paw prints in the background, it's a corgi. And today I'm going to talk about what Ethan Hunt taught me about asking questions and about cultivating a Mission Impossible mindset. And I fell in love with Tom Cruise as a side effect of my friend Landon, who I've mentioned here on the show a couple of times. And originally, he got me hooked into the Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick movies. And then, as just kind of my progression in loving Tom Cruise, my next mission, quote unquote, if you will, was to watch the Mission Impossible movies because the original goal was because Top Gun Maverick had come out. And then the following year, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which was originally part one, and then it was going to be Dead Reckoning part two, and then they switched the name to the Final Reckoning, was set to come out in theaters. So the goal was to get me caught up on all the Mission Impossibles so I can go see Dead Reckoning part one, which is now just Dead Reckoning in the theaters. I did not do that. I did get caught up in order to see the Final Reckoning in theaters, but which Landon and I we rank the Mission Impossible movies on my Western Hippie podcast show. So I will link that below if you two are a movie nerd and want to hear. Landon has the most interesting perspective on movies and gives some of the most beautiful breakdowns of film and movies in general. And so if you're like, I'm a bit of a film nerd, I will also link that below. So you can go listen to that if you want to. But the really big thing was I just fell in love with Tom Cruise. And one of the things that I started to, as I was watching Top Gun Maverick and Top Gun, and then going through the Mission Impossible series, one of the reasons those are my favorite Tom Cruise films is because there's such a thin line, such a thin veil between Tom Cruise the man and Ethan Hunt the character, and also Tom Cruise the man and Pete Mitchell the character. I think that those movies are so powerful because of how much they reflect who Tom Cruise really is, with also being this different character. Because especially in Top Gun Maverick, we see a lot of Mission Impossible themes, and from Rogue Nation to the Final Reckoning, the same. And Christopher McQuarrie, I hope I said his name right. If not, Landon's coming for me. Also helped with Top Gun Maverick. And so there really is some themes that are very similar. So if we take the concept of Top Gun Maverick and we also take these themes from Mission Impossible, we can start to catch patterns on how Tom Cruise does what he does. And that's for me one of the veils, if you will, which is so thin, is Tom Cruise himself very much has a Mission Impossible mindset. And to me, it is very evident by how he has made these movies, but also the fact that he is willing to do his own stunts. And this, we're not really going to talk about this movie, but even in Jack Reacher, when he is driving the car in the car chase, I mean, just the willingness and the lengths that he is willing to go to bring some realness to these movies is just something I deeply admire and deeply respect. And so as I'm watching these movies, I'm starting to catch these patterns of the first thing that I caught was, well, let's actually get super like almost, what is the word I'm looking for? Like super my gosh, my brain is tired. I usually record these in the morning, and I'm recording this at night because I decided to ride my horses in the morning, and my brain's just like, I'm done for the day. Why are we recording? Because we promised ourselves we are going to post a video and a podcast every day for 31 days straight. So we are recording at 5:18 p.m. PST. So here we are. But if we get really finicky, it's not the word I'm looking for, but it's the word I'm going to use. If we get really finicky about definitions, then we can really start to break down, what does impossible really mean versus how do we use it in everyday life. So the definition, what I'm going to use here, is the word impossible means cannot be done. So we can say humans can't fly. It's impossible. And if we take it literally, like, can humans fly like a bird? Like, we can just take our arms, start flapping, and we're going to take off flight? No. Have humans created things so that they can fly, such as airplanes? Yes, we have. And so is flying for humans, by definition, meaning it cannot be done, truly impossible? Well, no, because we created something that would allow us to do so. And so the thing that I started to ask myself when I say something is impossible, I started to ask myself, okay, let's get really finicky about these details, Michaela. Michaela, is it truly impossible? Or does it just require you to do things that you do not want to do to get it done? If so, that's okay. Just be honest with yourself, but do not lie to yourself and say it's impossible. Because one of the things that really sparked this contrast for me was in Mission Impossible. Just spoiler alert, Rogue Nation is one of my favorite films of all time. I love Rogue Nation. I think Elsa is just an amazing character. I love Benji. I love like Tom in that movie. I do like Jeremy Renner's character, like Big Rain. Like it's just like the best of Mission Impossible in one beautiful movie. All of that to say, I have seen that movie an idiotic amount of times. I am not telling you how many times I've had it on repeat. I'm not telling you how many times I've seen that movie because one, I don't know. Two, it's slightly embarrassing. Anywho, so one of my favorite scenes is when Benji and Tom Cruise, also spoiler alerts if you haven't seen the film, I'm not going to like give the punchline away because I don't know if I could if I wanted to, but go watch the movie. So I'm not giving away the movie, but there's a spoiler alert. One of my favorite scenes is when Elsa, Benji, and Tom, Ethan in the movie are in Morocco. And she's like, and believe me, I've tried, like, because they're trying to get this thing out of this center. And she's like, believe me, I've thought about it. It's impossible. And again, we could argue maybe with just one person, it would have been impossible for all the little things they had to do. However, they got what they needed to get out of that thing, which tells us objectively it was not impossible. It was possible. It was just, were you willing to do or train to do what needed to be done to get it done? Like in that scene, Tom Cruise has to hold his breath for a certain amount of minutes and he's swimming against a current and has to get the disc out. And then actually Elsa does end up saving him so that he doesn't drown in this scene. Again, is it very difficult? Yes. Was it impossible? No. Or it would not have been done. And again, we can say, well, Michaela, this is a movie. It's Hollywood. There's a lot of things in place. However, that's what makes these movies so cool, is because there are a lot of these stunts that Tom Cruise himself is doing that most people would deem impossible or would use CGI for or use green screen. And yet Tom Cruise is getting them done. And even I think one of the best stunts throughout the franchise is the one in what now was supposed to be Dead Reckoning Part 1 is now just Dead Reckoning, where Tom Cruise takes the motorbike and goes off the cliff and parachutes down. He's not landing on the train, but he really did go off a cliff on a motorbike and parachute down like 26 times. Most people would have said that was impossible. And yet they made that stunt real. Like he actually did that. Maybe not the things around it. And so again, this is what we can start to use as like, okay, Ethan Hunt is a fictional character. Maybe we can't be as literal because Hollywood is doing its little voodoo like bippity boppity boop and making things happen. However, we can look at Tom Cruise himself because he actually is doing a lot of these stunts in real life. So that was the first thing that Tom Cruise and Ethan Hunt really started to teach me about is what I've been calling cultivating a Mission Impossible mindset is first get super finicky and super picky about and objective as possible with these definitions. Is it truly impossible, or do I just not want to do what it takes to get the job done? Which is okay. Like, it is not impossible to parachute and jump out of a plane. Do I want to do what it takes to get that done? No. Will I skydive at some point in my life? Possibly. Do I have any intentions on doing it right now? No. And am I like beating myself up because I don't want to do it? No. Did walk across fire at a Tony Robbins event though. Would have said that was impossible at one point, and yet here I am. I always, my favorite is when Mushu pops up from Mulan. It's like, I lived, and I'm here to tell you the story. And so that was the first thing that got me super, super clear was how can I start to get really objective and really finicky about what is actually impossible versus what am I just not willing to do to get it done? Because to me, that is the second step. Is there's a difference between saying it's not possible versus asking the question of how can I make this possible? So I've objectively decided, okay, it's not technically impossible, but it is going to be really hard. There's going to be a lot of obstacles. And so now the cool thing about the brain is the way the brain works is it works on a loop. If we ask it a question, it will give us an answer. However, when we say a statement, we're just not going to get anything. And we're not even going to get our brain to use itself to its full capacity. When we ask the brain a question, it will allow, like the way that I see it, it's like when we just say a statement, we say stay on the surface, where when we ask a question, we actually can allow, like, imagine the question is a deep sea diver, and it actually allows the diver to dive to the depths and to bring something back up. Where when we say a statement, it's just like sitting in the water on top of a floaty. And so when we start asking the question, how can I make this possible? And we can start brainstorming, it's like, oh, okay, like if we're going to use the Tom Cruise, let's use actually the stunt from Dead Reckoning, when he is on the motorcycle and jumps off the cliff. Okay, how can we make this possible? Okay, can you jump off the cliff as is safely without hitting the side of the cliff? No. Okay, well, how could we get you enough speed, but also up in the air enough? And if you look at the behind the scenes, you can see how they built the ramp so that you're far enough away from the cliff and that you have enough speed to get you to where you need to be for the motorbike. And then also, what kind of a budget do we need and how many motorbikes do we need and what style? And like, so it's, we have the continuity from scene to scene to scene. So we start to say how, and then we can start making a list of like, okay, I can do this and I can do that and I can do XYZ. And again, that's just going to open our brain. And the goal, the other thing that I look at with this is like when we constrict the brain, it just gives us like more of a peripheral. We can only see one or two ways. But when we expand the brain, we can start to see multiple things going on and multiple opportunities or possibilities going on. And so those are kind of the main things. And I feel like there's something else that I'm forgetting. But as I said, my brain is like very tired tonight, but I promised myself I would do this. But those are really the big things, is like getting really objective. Three main things, let me finish my sentence, that Tom Cruise has taught me about cultivating a Mission Impossible mindset is one, let's get super finicky and super objective about this definition. Like, is it truly impossible, or am I just not wanting to do what it takes to get the job done? Again, no right or wrong, just let's be super honest with ourselves about it. Okay, that's step one. Step two is, what questions can I ask myself in order to get my brain to find or see a solution other than to shut it down and to not see any opportunity at all? And then the third thing is, let's get really clear on what things we can start to try and how we can actually get this done. And maybe like, what calls do I need to make to get this done? And really just focusing on, what do I need to ask myself and what do I need to say to myself to get my brain to expand and not to contract. And it's just been a super important lesson for me. And in this episode today, I want to do something like kind of pop culture-y, but also loop it back around into personal development and how the brain works and emotions, because, that's also what I do. So those are my thoughts. And those are the things that Tom Cruise has taught me about creating and cultivating a Mission Impossible mindset. As always, I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. If you have found value out of this episode, I would be ever so thankful if you would subscribe and review the show and tell me what you found most valuable from it. And without further ado, but until next time, thank you for being here, and myself and my corgis will talk to you soon.